Well, I just recently picked up the equestrian pocket knife by Rough Rider. I got one in white smooth bone, and it came in the magnetic box that they're using these days, and it's a pretty decent knife. It's got these slanted bars with, the slanted bolsters with the large Rough Rider R on the front there, only on the front side this time. Nice white smooth bone handles, brass spacers and liners, stainless steel back springs, nickel silver bolsters, and 440 razor sharp stainless steel blades, typical of a Rough Rider knife. And like all the modern ones, you have a half stop going with the blades. Now, as you can tell, this is a 4 1/8 inch trapper frame that they're using, and that's what you see on a lot of the farrier knives or horse hoof knives these days. They're built on a trapper frame. So, and often the front blade will be a clip blade. In this case, the clip blade has the Rough Rider RIDER tang stamp, and then in the back blade, instead of a spade blade, you have a hoof blade, and the hoof blade here, or the hoof pick, is a Rough Rider RYDER. So it's very transitional, which kind of makes it kind of cool. And you heard the snap on it. Build on this thing is just fantastic. The pins are nice in there. It looks like nickel silver pins instead of brass pins. That might be stainless steel pins, but the pins do not look brass. Brass liners, however. Bone is not too bad on there. Transition is pretty good. All in all, a great build. And this is the type of hoof knife that you see most often these days. Case makes one like this. Schrade makes one like this. And like Cattleman's Cutlery makes one like this. But there's also another version that is out there right now. Now, what we have here is one that's been around. I guess it came out a couple of years ago, and this one is by Robert Class. Frost also came out with one that looked almost identical to this, and the build of it is probably identical. I don't know for sure. As you can tell, it's still a trapper frame, or pretty close to a trapper frame, but it's a little bit modified. 4 1/8 inches long, and the front blade, once again, is your typical clip blade that you find on a trapper. There is no half stop, it just rocks around. And then the back blade here is a sheepfoot blade that is, the front edge is fine, and then the back side is serrated. And I'm guessing this is helpful for taking care of the hoofs on a horse also. I don't know. I do not have a horse. I've never taken care of a horse hoof or anything. But it does look like it would be useful for various cutting chores. And it's nice to have two blades on there. And if you notice here, the hoof pick is mounted on the back, and I was wondering when I got this how this hoof pick locks, and quite frankly it doesn't. It just snaps in place back here. It's held in place by friction. If you slip it over a bit, you can pull it down, and when you pull it down, as you can tell, it swings. Now if you have a blade out, that gets tight, so that's because the spring is pushing down. If you notice, it's swinging back and forth. As soon as a blade is down, the blade interferes with that swinging. So and if you notice, there's a file on the back side of this hoof pick. And I guess what you're going to be doing with this is you'll either hold the hoof pick against the knife, or you can grab it any way you want to and hold the hoof pick, and pick things out. Just seems pretty comfortable, actually, just getting it in between there and pulling and doing whatever you want to do with it. And at first I thought this was kind of goofy until I started doing a little bit of looking around at older horse hoof knives, and actually this one is closer to the old equestrian knives than this one is. This one is much more a modern take. It's just an easy way to put a hoof pick on a trapper frame, basically, and that's what they've done. And these are the ones you see most often. I think it's probably the most cost-effective way to do it. This one is closer to the kind of hoof pick knives you saw back in the 1800s and such. And then when I started, I've done quite a bit of history on not so much the knives, but actually on horse doctors in the past. And one of the things I found out when I started looking at the old hoof pick knives, they had a whole lot more blades on it than just a hoof pick and like a clip blade or something like that. They also had things on there for like a fleam or a lancet for letting blood out, and other types of blades, different files, all sorts of blades on them. So also things like toothpicks, tweezers, corkscrews, all sorts of things. And so the knives were much more involved than the common one you're seeing today. And so in many ways, this is closer to what the old knives looked like. Now, while I'm at it, let me talk a little bit about horse doctors. Today, we think of a horse doctor as somebody who treats horses, a veterinarian and this stuff. This was not the case back in the 1700s and early 1800s. Horse doctors were actually doctors that a lot of people would go to also. And the reason being is back in the 1700s and 1800s, a physician usually dealt with medicine and stuff. He would give you a pill or something to solve your problems. And then surgeons were really good at cutting things out or cutting things off, but they really didn't do much beyond that. And then a horse doctor, well, he was treating whole animals and stuff, and he did something that physicians and surgeons did not do very well, and that was he set bones. You don't think of that because we always think that if a horse gets injured, if it breaks a leg, they kill it. That's not the way it always goes. And the thing is what the horse doctor would actually do. Horse doctors were really good at checking legs on horses and other animals, feeling around and finding out if the bone was actually broken or if they just needed to wrap the leg or something. And they were also really good at concoctions to ease pain, like the liniments and stuff, to help the horses heal and such. And so if you thought you had broken a bone or something, chances are you ended up going to a horse doctor instead of a physician who was going to just give you a pill or something, or a surgeon who might just go and cut your leg off. So you'd go to the horse doctor, and he could actually feel your leg and tell if, he would feel around and tell if the leg was just sprained or if it was broken. And if it was broken, there was a good chance that he might be able to set the leg. And if he could set the leg, then he could brace it and you would keep your leg. If you went to a surgeon and you had a broken leg, and especially if the bone was showing or something, chances are he was just going to cut it off. A horse doctor, though, would actually try and set the leg, bandage it back up, and if infection didn't set in, he still had a leg when 6 to 6 months, whatever, was over with. You at least still had a leg. And so people actually used to go to horse doctors for a lot of things. It wasn't until medicine started advancing and they started regulating it a lot more that horse doctors weren't treating human beings as much. So that's probably why you see a lot of old horse doctor knives or horse knives with a lot of other tools on there, including things that you would think would have been used for like a regular doctor, like the lancet and stuff like that, because horse doctors also treated boils and stuff, so they were really good at lancing boils and all sorts of other stuff like that. And when it came to lancing a boil, a horse doctor was going to charge you a whole lot less than a surgeon would. Any case, just a little side there that I thought people would be interested in. And just another thought about these knives. I like both of them. This is the kind you see most often today, but if you can get a hold of one of these Robert Class ones, you might want to do that too. And if you can afford one of those antique ones, go for it, because they look really cool, but man, do they cost a lot of money. Any case, there we go. 2 equestrian knives I got. Both of them are pretty cool, but I got to tell you, I got to give the nod to the Robert Class here. I think it's a much more interesting, much cooler knife than the typical equestrian type knives you see now with the with the hoof pick. Thank you so much for joining us I hope you enjoyed this episode of Knife Chats, and if you did, please like and share it with your friends. Comments are always welcome. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you'll know when the next episode of Knife Chats is up online. Thanks again. Hope to see you soon.